Hello, fellow time travelers. I am author Eileen Schnabel, author of the Kep Westguard Time Travel to the American Revolution series, and we're going to do two Professor Noggin's questions about the hardships of war, of which there were many. But both of these were addressed actually in Kep Westguard Rebel Spy, so I'm going to read you a little passage with each. Number one, more soldiers died from disease than from fighting. True or false? And while you're thinking about that, here's a little passage that happened to address that. So Kep has traveled to 1777, where he is at General Burgoyne's camp, and he wheels a cart into a tent. And so this is the little passage. He wheeled the cart awkwardly inside the ugly, dimly lit, so-called hospital tent. The smell of vomit and stale urine hung thick in the air. No clean white sheets, no white-coated doctors. A dirt floor and canvas walls blackening on the bottom with mold from recent rains. 8 rows of men lay on cots or on the floor in small piles of straw. And so a little bit later, he sees a boy who's about his brother's age, about 10. It says, on a cot lay a thin, pale boy, maybe 10, in a rough homespun shirt. And you think, well, why is a 10-year-old in the hospital tent, and how is he injured? Next to the cot stood the shattered remains of a drum with the unmistakable hole in the musket ball torn through. Because if you watch my other video on drummer boys, they could easily be as young as 10. So the boy's name is Henry. Henry's face was flushed, probably with fever. As nervous as he was, Kep couldn't help but think that in this overcrowded makeshift hospital, it was a death trap. Even if a soldier recovered from his wounds, he'd likely get some infection that 18th century medicine was incapable of curing. Would it really be so wrong to drop some hints about basic sanitation, save some lives? And that's something that Kep faces time and again, because his job is to go to the American Revolution and keep history on track. And every time you try to make a small change, even if it's for the good, you risk sending things off track. So that was that first question. So the answer, did more people die of essentially germs than guns, you could say? And the answer is definitely yes. All right, second one, and I promise it's shorter. And number 2, in order to eat, soldiers often pillaged from farmers. True or false? And pillaged is just a fancy way to say stole. And the answer to that is true. So here's one last little scene. And this is when Kep first arrives to 1777. He's hiding behind to kind of figure out what's going on at this farm. He made it to a long row of stacked firewood and peeked over the top to assess the situation. Behind the farmhouse, in an enormous garden, a lone red-coated soldier ripped stubby carrots from the ground and shoved them in his pockets. Cabbage and potatoes were piled by his boots. So did they steal, pillage from local farmers, both sides? And the answer was definitely yes. Anyway, that was a bit long. So kudos to you if you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for letting me share, and I'll see you soon.